Hi, I'm Paul Montone. I'm here with Greg Kaminski and Jimena Alvarado, and we are talking about the category of follow institutional procedures. And one important part of that is to post important and welcoming course information on the class details page to inform students prior to registration. um, Jimena, you've applied a number of strategies to personalize your class details page. It'd be great if you could share a few of the techniques you'd like to use and why you use them.
Yeah, I started this a few years ago. I teach in non-traditional ways, and I wanted my students to get a chance to have informed consent as to the class they were signing up for. I wanted them to get a sense of who I am and how I talk, and sometimes I have a lot of energy, and I wanted them to hear me and see me speak, so that if I was not their cup of tea, they didn't have to take the class with me. So a few years ago, I started emailing my students about a month before a course began, and sending out a syllabus, and sending out an intro video, pointing them to my faculty webpage, to give them as much information as I could so that they could drop the class if it wasn't going to be a good fit for them. And recently, I started using the class details page to kind of host all that information in one spot so that they could see it even before they registered for my class.
Excellent. Can we take a look at that?
Absolutely. All right. Class information is right off of the class schedule. And I like to give the folks a sense of what the class is like. I like to give them a sense of me. So tone of voice is really important for me in written information. So I use a lot of exclamation points and as simple language as I can. I give them a little sense of what the class is like. And then I also link up some old syllabi. I point them to my website and I send them a little intro video. So sadly, I can't link the syllabus directly on this page, but I include it as a hyperlink. So this here takes my students to my old syllabi. And so these are not necessarily updated so that it's easy for me, but it gives them a sense of what the class is like and what the evaluation, the procedures are going to be like. So that works pretty well. They also get pointed to my intro video, which is over here. And I try to be as welcoming as I can.
Hi folks, I'm Jimena, and this is Amelia, who's just been bribed with a cookie to say hi on camera. I wanted to reach out to you and give you a sense of what taking a women's studies class is like with me, so that you can make a decision about whether it's a good fit for you, while you can still find another class and there's still possibly space somewhere else.
To me, this is an equity issue because folks need a sense of what they're getting into. And we find that they do a lot better if they can choose the class that's right for them. That's going to have the evaluation system that's going to work the best, where they can find a good fit with the teacher, where they can have a little bit more control of what the class is going to be like. In teaching women's and gender studies and activism a few years ago, I worked with the students on what kinds of things they would change about PCC if they could have their own way. And the class decided that the most impactful thing for them would be to get a syllabus before the course began. And this kind of got me started on pushing hard for not just me sending out a syllabus, but encouraging other folks to do it as well.
I love your intro video, Jimena. That's really fun, especially how you've personalized it with a cat. You've really humanized the experience for students, letting them get to know you in a different way. Things that are important to you, that you're passionate about, and that's really important in this, I think.
Yeah. I make a point to try to normalize me as a human being. I have a faculty webpage always up, probably a little bit outdated, but it tells people about my love of berries and my love of garage sales, or how weird it is for me to be in the United States where the sunset is odd during the summer. So this has been important to me for a few years, and I'm really glad that we have good tools to do it here.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You don't have students wait until the first day of class to start getting to know you, but they already know you going into the class if they've read the class details page. So that's terrific.
I went to a teaching and learning center session a few years ago about revamping your syllabus. And as we were working on it, I mentioned that I send out my syllabus before the term begins. And a colleague that was sitting next to me said something that stuck with me. And she said, oh my God, I would never send out the syllabus ahead of time because they're going to get a sense of me like I'm scary and awful. And so that was a great conversation starter. And we started talking about the tone of voice that's used in the syllabus. And if the syllabus is presented as a legalistic contract, that's going to be a getcha. That can set the tone for the term. So I very deliberately have changed the way I organize things to be as warm and welcoming as I can. So you saw a version of my syllabus, but I want to show the prettier version, which is the one I do when we're actually on campus. Let's see. So this is my on-paper syllabus, and I try to make it enjoyable to read. It's kind of broken down. The content pretty much stayed the same, but I changed out the headlines. So instead of saying attendance, I said, you got to be here. And I'm trying to get them a sense of the most important parts of the class and what's going to work well and what's not. So my syllabus is filled with images and broken down. I've heard folks say that it looks like a little bit of a zine or a newsletter.
That's great. You've made it so conversational in a way, and added so many images that it's drawing the students in to read it.
I also appreciate your comment about when you write the information on your class details page about how you try to be really considerate of the tone, using exclamation points, communicating to students that you're there, you're present, and you are welcoming.
I try to make the language kind of match my teaching philosophy of trying to be educational partners, not playing evil, scary, mean cop, but somebody that can help them have a great learning experience. So I phrase things as we're going to be working together, and there's things that we can do to make this fantastic together.
Yeah, that's great. You're announcing your pedagogical strategies or your approach and your teaching philosophy, and that's really empowering, I think, for students.
It's worked pretty well. I teach women's and gender studies, which can be a challenging subject for a lot of folks. It's hard to talk about oppression. It's hard to talk about racism. The way I do it is pretty non-traditional. And I want folks to have a good sense of what they're getting into before they're stuck with me. I also want to kind of hit it off at the pass and let them know that it's not a debating class, so that they can come into the class sometimes with less of a confrontational tone. And it's worked over the years because I've had less confrontational students over the years.
You've described some of the ways that it has benefited students to put this out there in advance. Do you have anything more to add to that? Any other ways that these strategies have helped the students get to know you or get to know the class ahead of time?
Yeah, I was really touched in that activism class when we talked about some of the most important practices that would impact the students' daily lives. We had a few different topics up on the board and we were voting here and there, and everybody finally concluded that if we had to pick the one thing they would want is the syllabus ahead of time. And that can be an absolute game changer for them. Even if it's an old syllabus, they can get a lot of information about what the teacher is like and what the class is like based on an old syllabus. So letting them get a sense of, is this a reading heavy class? Is it a writing heavy class? Is it based on quizzes? Is it based on exams? What kind of flexibility is there on timing, or is there not? Is attendance going to be the most important point? Giving them that information lets them make the most complete decisions for themselves. So that is really at the center of it for me. It's an equity issue because traditional students are going to do fine with traditional classrooms, and they're gonna roll with exams and traditional ways of teaching. But the folks that are going to have the hardest times are the ones who are going to benefit the very most from these extra steps. So the folks that we really are trying to bring in and help them feel welcome at the college and help them recognize that they do belong here and that they can succeed, those are the folks that do the best with these extra steps.
Hey, I kind of wondered if you received any feedback from students saying, hey, I really appreciate the information that you provided ahead of class. Maybe those are the students who dropped your class and said, oh, no, it's not for me.
Sometimes when I send out the email to folks that are already registered, sometimes they do get back to me and say, oh, wait, I thought it was going to be a this and this class. That format's not going to work for me. And then I get to tell them, like, I'm really glad that you know that one. There's still a good chance to switch to a different class. So we all do better.
Jimena, these are great strategies. What might you advise others who might want to start doing this themselves?
I would say to start quick and dirty. Like, don't get perfectionistic. Don't have these great aspirations on doing everything all at once, because that's going to get you stuck. I would say if you were going to just do one thing, the lowest bar that would be the most impactful for students would be to just throw an old syllabus up on the class details page. That is going to have a big impact. And it's not a big lift. It's an old syllabus. You don't even have to finish it before the term begins. If you can do it as soon as possible, after that class details page is available, it'll have a big impact, because we know that as students are learning to turn to class details for information, if they find a blank page, it's unlikely that they're going to go back to it again. So we're trying to really encourage folks to throw that up as soon as possible. Once you get that little reminder of the class details page is available, if you can go through, and you can even copy over from last term. So it's a really small set of clicks. You just copy over from last term. So that's a super low lift that would have a big impact for students. And then as you have the time and energy and interest, do another thing. Like, grab your cell phone. I usually prop my cell phone up in my pen holder and record a quick video and throw it up. I find that giving students a chance to see my face and hear my voice and get used to my mannerisms can have a big impact in making them feel welcome. So that would be another great thing. And as you feel like it, you could make a faculty web page, or you could revamp your syllabus and throw something silly in it, whatever. But I would just say, just start somewhere simple and lower your standards. Go for quick and dirty.
Yeah, those are great steps. I mean, you can really humanize your course before it even starts.
And with the syllabus, it's simply a matter of uploading it to Google Docs and marking it as view only, grabbing the link, and it's easy to insert a link in the class details.
I find that if I try to do everything at once and try to get it perfect, then I can never get started. So I give myself permission to just do something halfway and call it good enough. And then later, if I get the energy, I'll perfect it. But usually it just goes up when it's good enough.
And if you have a cat or a dog, introduce them as part of the video.
Yeah, and bribing them with cookies really helps.
So, Jimena, I've heard you made a website to go along with this to show students. So could you show us that?
Yeah, I was part of the Open Educational Resources project a few years ago, and I ended up making an OER site with all of my course information for all 4 of my classes. I made a link to that in my class details page, and it points directly to my site, which is everydaysocialjustice.com. And the students could come in here and start taking a peek at the classes. And so these are each of my course materials for each of the lesson plans. This one on care work. The students get a little description of what the class is like. They can find their prep materials on here. They can even see the conversation questions that we're going to use during class time. I've got a little summary video for each of the lesson plans, and then there's extra materials if they want to get super nerdy. And I've got something like that for each of the lesson plans for each of my classes. So I like having it on there for other folks to teach from. And I like having it on there so that students can get a sense of what they're getting into. Sometimes it's been helpful when I have, for example, I've had students who might be nervous about their English skills, and they might be nervous about the reading materials, and I can point them right to my site and say, you can see all of the prep materials and actually start reading them right now and see if you feel comfortable with that and if that's going to be a good class for you. It's also been useful sometimes when I've got folks adding in late during that first week, and I can just point them to my website and say, okay, start reading this while we get all the registration sorted out.
So this has been excellent, Jimena. I really appreciate all of the strategies that you've shared with us today. Clearly, it's a benefit for students to get to learn about their classes in advance and what it's going to be like, and make an informed decision, and even get a start with the materials of the class and activities. So really appreciate all that you've shared today. Thank you.
Thanks. It's been great being here.